welcome you to the Pre-Med Solutions Boot Camp. This is our second annual boot camp. The one we had last year was in person, and that was very successful, but we are very happy to see the number of you that have signed on to join us in this virtual boot camp. And in some ways, we can maybe be a little bit more effective doing this virtually. My name is Frank Jones. I am the founder of Pre-Med Solutions. I am a general surgeon by training. I'm here in Atlanta, also president of the Atlanta Medical Association. That's enough about me. You don't need to hear anything else about me. We want to be able to answer your questions today. And again, we want you to be able to use the chat box to be able to answer them. We have some heavy hitters here from across the country. We have some admissions officers from several different schools. And so please use the opportunity to ask your questions while you have these individuals here. We want to thank them again for donating their time. Every single one of them that I asked agreed to do it without any questions. I do want to mention, if you look on my credentials, that I am a faculty member at Morehouse School of Medicine and at PCOM, but I am not officially representing them here today. We have individuals that are representing them. So I just want to make that clear, that I am not representing them. So first of all, I do want to make two quick announcements. First of all, for those of you that are interested in taking Kaplan review course, I spoke with the Kaplan's leadership team, and they are going to give us a significant discount if you decide to take Kaplan through our course. The average course is $2,699. If you take it through us, you can get it for $1,250. That's more than a 50% discount. And all we have to do is have 15 to 20 students agree to do it virtually. If we get 100 students, then it will only cost us $1,000 per student. And so that's a phenomenal discount that they're giving us, and it's only because of volume. So please, if you're interested, please reach out to us through the email addresses that you have, and we'll set up some virtual classes for you. They're willing to do some really different kind of things to help us get through this MCAT. We're going to have follow-up sessions. We're still talking about how exactly we're going to do that, but we're going to break them up into smaller groups of the presenters and maybe have them actually present in depth on a topic and then answer questions. I have just one slide. Dr. Hubbard, if you want to go ahead and throw that slide up. I was going to ask individuals to do presentations today, but I said, no, let's not do that. Let's just answer questions. But I always like to just mention a few very, very brief pearls, and this kind of summarizes what I think will help you get in. Number one, get you a good mentor. Number two, work hard and get your grades. 3, play hard and get good letters. I mean, play hard meaning, you know, your extracurricular activities and other activities, and that will help you get some good letters. Pick a major that you can excel in. We'll have some discussion about that. Some people may differ in their opinion about that. MCAT, how do you study for the MCAT? I think it's questions. I'm sure somebody else on the panel may feel a little different. When it comes to your personal statement, tell a story. Tell your story on your personal statement. Of course, submit your application early. Apply to the right schools. We're going to talk about that this evening. Then in the interview, tell your story again. Now's the chance. You got your foot in the door. Now's the chance to really be able to tell your story. And if you get rejected, all is not lost. It's just another opportunity. It took me 3 opportunities to get into med school. And that's what makes me so passionate now about helping other individuals get into school. All right, Priscilla, you can take that down. So the first thing we want to do before we start out, we have the National President of MAPS, Ms. Nicole Davis, on here with us. And I asked her to be on here to kind of represent the students. Nicole, can you, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Just make a brief comment and any, you know, what you expect to get out of this event this evening.
Sure. So everyone, just wanted to say thank you. On behalf of SNMA, I want to say shout out hello to all of my SNMA family. So again, my name is Nicole Davis. I chair the National MAPS Committee. So this opportunity, I just think is amazing. Being a pre-med myself and working specifically with a demographic of students that are like me, to have this opportunity to have some questions answered. There's so many things that we don't know right now, And I just would advise everyone to take all of the advice into consideration and to ask all of your questions while we have their attention. So thank you, Dr. Jones, and everyone for allowing us the opportunity to be here.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'm looking, we have 80 questions in the chat already, which is great. But I want to start off with a question. I've gotten 4 emails already about this. And this is not usually where we start. I actually went and broke it up into sections, but we're going to throw that out the window. These are the questions that seem to be burning questions, so we'll start there. Several questions about non-traditional students. Dr. Bright, you've been in this game for a long time. Can you talk to us a little bit about the non-traditional student? And that's, different people describe it different ways, but I had several questions about the non-traditional student. One of those people that was non-traditional also had an institutional action 2 years ago, academic institutional action, and she was wondering how that might affect her. Can you talk about that briefly? And please introduce yourself.
Thanks, Frank. I appreciate it. I'm Dr. Cedric Bright. I'm a general internist by training. I am the Associate Dean for Admissions at the Brody School of Medicine and the Associate Dean for Diversity and Inclusion at Brody. I'm a full professor of medicine, and I'm the 112th president of the your National Medical Association. Great question. More and more students are coming in the portal as non-traditional students. Non-traditional means taking a couple of gap years to having a separate career to even being in the military. So even working on Wall Street, I've seen people make career changes because their heart changes. They figure out that there's something else that they want to do in their life, a different purpose that they are called for. So what I would suggest to you is that there is no age in which you cannot apply to medical school. I've accepted people who were in their 40s. I accepted a woman this past year who was a lawyer for 15 years, but her heart had always wanted to become a doctor, but she got scared along the way and thought she couldn't do it. And it took her 15 years to get the courage up to come back to medicine. So I say all that to say, non-tradition is a big overarching label for a lot of different people with a lot of different experiences. But one of the things that you have is experience. Bring your experience to the game. What did you do in your other life and what did you learn from it that made you have more passion for medicine? That will help make you different.
Thank you, thank you. Dr. Smitherman, you want to comment on that?
Yes, we've had, I've been doing admissions since the early 90s, and I think the oldest candidate I can remember is about 48 that we accepted to medical school. And we've been doing that for many years. Actually, your life experiences, and especially longer life experience, are actually helpful in your applications. What kind of work experience you've had, health experience, leadership activities, examples of leadership, and non-traditional occupations actually make you, I think, a stronger candidate because you have more life experiences and more attributes to offer to medicine. If you come in, for example, as Cedric was saying, talking about an attorney, I mean, we need people with legal minds as also physicians. So those are strong candidates, and don't think of yourself as taking yourself off the table by having what you consider non-traditional that probably are becoming more traditional as time goes on. As Dr. Jones said, many of our students apply multiple times and gain more experience each time they apply. They do something, they do a research project, they do more health experience, they do additional classes, they come in as stronger candidates. So I think it's actually an asset.
Okay, good to hear. So all of you that think you're non-traditional, that's not a bad thing.
The one point we didn't mention though, Frank, is you have to check the school's prerequisites. Because if your prerequisites are out of date, you may have to go take other courses in order to make yourself competitive and eligible. So make sure you look at whether schools have a moratorium on how old your classes can be.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Let's look now. We're going to kind of talk about some of the earlier part of the process of applying. In terms of choosing a major, I mean, I was a biology major in school. It seems like most people are either biology or chemistry majors. Dr. Schofield, do you think that most people, is it a benefit? I don't want to say it's a benefit, but should you major in a science area?
Hi,
And
I'm
please
Minka
introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Minka Schofield. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Otolaryngology, Head and Neck Surgery at The Ohio State University. I am the co-chair of the admissions committee for our College of Medicine. I would say that no, it's actually not necessary for you to major in science. I'm actually intrigued by the English major who can then go and knock out their science courses. I mean, I find that amazing. So I think people that come with these majors that we don't typically associate with medicine. I love biomedical engineers or engineers in general because I think it says a lot about their critical thinking skills, their analytical skills. So I've had dance majors. I think it's all about how you perform in your classes, how you perform in the prerequisites. And once again, just like the non-traditional student, it adds another layer of depth to you and makes you more interesting to the interviewer when you're not so I'm the science major going into medicine. So no, it's not necessary.
Okay. Dr. Watt, please introduce yourself and comment on that.
Yeah, my name is Kevin Watt. I'm the Assistant Dean of Diversity at School of Medicine at Wright State, Dayton, Ohio. I've been doing this job about 11, 12 years. It's good to see everybody. I think it's important, Dr. Jones, that you continue to do these things, and we certainly know that it's much needed by the numbers of people that are on the call and the folks that give their evenings to do this. I think, all things are good. What major, for me, I think it's important to major in something that you have passion for. You could be a classics major who wants to go to med school, but you got to enjoy college time, because if you're going to med school, once med school hits, we're going down that path for the rest of your life. So for me, I came through as a biology major. There was very few people that weren't biology majors when we came through Morehouse that were doing that. But what I've seen right now is the people that are chemistry majors in college, if they can handle chemistry, I've not seen any students that we've had matriculate that have had any problem in medical school. But your brain has to think like that initially. And some people, you just do it because you have to do it. And some people can excel at it. So for me, I think it's just whatever you have passion for, because that's what you're going to work hard at. And that's just how I think about it. You got to do the prerequisites. The one thing, if you're not a science major, you just take the prerequisites, your BCPM might be looking a little better because you don't have all these million classes of sciences. So something else to think about.
Okay. I'm going to try and add in some of these other chat questions. And please, when you if you write a question in chat, just shout out where you're from, put your city, your state in there. Just be interesting to know where everyone's coming from. We had one question. Someone asked, they're Canadian, and they're wondering how are Canadians looked at when they're trying to come to medical school. Dr. Finley, have we had any Canadian students try to apply to Morehouse? Actually, tell us who you are first, please.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Rita Finley. I'm not a physician, but biomedical scientist by training. I'm Assistant Dean for Educational Outreach and Health Careers at Morehouse School of Medicine, which is our pipeline programs. And I teach in the medical curriculum and JEBS, that's our graduate program, curriculum from the Department of Pathology and Anatomy, where I'm an associate professor, as well as directing a Master's of Science in Medical Sciences for students who are trying to get into medical school. At Morehouse School of Medicine, we do not take international students, so you must be a permanent resident or a citizen to apply. So.
Okay. Dr. Smitherman, you're right there in Detroit. Do you all have any kind of cooperative agreement with Canada?
we actually have in the United States one of the largest Canadian contingents in medical school. We do not accept any international students except from Canada. And so we do interview, and we typically have from our class is 292 students a class. We usually have about 30 to 40 Canadians in the class. The challenge with the Canadians has been their ability to get loans and funding from their country for medical school. That has been a significant challenge. There are limits in Canada, and so there's a lot of out-of-pocket costs for the Canadians, and so that is a challenge. But you have to look at the medical school and look at their criteria. There are schools, as was just said, that do not accept international students, no matter where they come from. And if the university does, or the medical school does, then these applicants are considered just like any other applicants. Actually, their GPAs and MCAT scores are typically extraordinarily high, and they do well in our school.
Okay. And I see we have somebody from Nova Scotia on the call. So welcome. Go a little bit further into this. Dr. Graham, someone's asking, what should I do during the summer? So this is probably someone who's early in their career. What should they do during the summers while they're in school to help them in terms of their journey to get into medical school? And please tell us who you are.
I'm Dr. Graham. I'm assistant professor of medicine and geriatrics at Emory University School of Medicine. I'm also the vice chair for diversity, equity, and inclusion for the Department of Family and Preventative Medicine.
Can you speak a little bit louder, Antonio? We have a little trouble.
Sure. Can you hear me now? Is that better?
Better.
Okay. I was just saying I'm the vice chair of diversity, equity, and inclusion for the Department of Family and Preventative Medicine at Emory. I'm also on the admissions committee at Emory as well. I do screening for all of the URM applicants. So with that being said, to answer the question, these summers are very important that you take advantage of either doing some type of research program. I actually think studying abroad is also a good way to do it. If you can even incorporate both studying abroad and doing something scientific at the same time, there are people who will go and do research at other universities around the world as a way to, strengthen your application in that way. But if not, if just doing some of the programs that, the traditional programs that we have, I forget the new name of the one that is basically at almost all the major medical school campuses, that you can apply for any type of supervised research where you can get a good letter. Because what you want to do is go to one of these places for the summer and someone write you a letter that says something like, I've been over research programs for over 10 years, and out of 300 students that I've mentored, you're in the top 5% of all students that I've ever had. You have statements like that from very powerful, heavy hitter research people at different institutions around the country that will definitely set you apart when it comes time for the admissions committees to read your application. So those summer opportunities are very important. You don't want to squander your summer. Definitely either with some type of formalized program or a university-based research program that you can apply for, which there are tons for minority students, and just regular research programs, period, that you can apply from outside of your own undergraduate institution.
Okay. Dr. Rose, please introduce yourself, and what are your thoughts about that? What type of activities do you encourage your potential students to participate in?
Certainly. Good evening, Frank, and thanks for the invite again. Name is Dave Rose. I'm the Associate Dean for Student Affairs and Admissions at Howard University College of Medicine. This is the beginning of my 4th cycle, so I consider myself pretty young in the admissions business. I am a vascular surgeon by training and an associate professor in the Department of Surgery. I agree with Dr. Graham. I think the summer is an opportunity for you to kind of bone up on those additional experiences that really will kind of put your application, front and center with the admissions committee. So I won't repeat the things that he mentioned, but I think in addition, for some students, it may be an opportunity to actually take some summer school classes. It may allow them to decompress their curriculum that following year, if they can knock out 1 or 2 of their prereqs in the summer, and they can probably do that and still manage to slip in some research or other community-based type activities that will enhance their application as well.
Okay. Dr. Edmond, now you and I met in a summer program a few years ago. We won't say how many years ago, but what are your thoughts about that?
Number one, I agree with the preceding statement. One of the things he said
Tell us
was,
who you are first.
Dr. B.K. Edmond. Basically, I'm a board certified anesthesiologist. I practice out of Walter Reed and Johns Hopkins. And I attended Morehouse with Frank Jones, but I also lead something called Why We Can't Wait. Basically, it's one of the things me and Frank and some other alumni got together in order to help students, pre-med students in the Atlanta metro area get a good start off in terms of understanding the process for getting into medical school. Frank, I say very quickly, I think number one, the previous statement about his taking a summer school or a class that would allow you to lighten the load during the regular school year. I think that's important. I like to use that as a segue just to say that if you have a choice, I like the idea of maintaining a higher GPA versus fulfilling the course qualifications. So in short, instead of taking a heavy load and trying to fulfill all your qualifications, it's very important that you understand that while we want you to take those courses, we want you to do well in those courses, and it should be reflected in your GPA. And in closing, I just like to say that I'd like the idea of utilizing summers. If you have high school students who are transitioning to freshmen or freshmen going to sophomore, I believe in the concept of no wasted motions. So each one of your summers, if you have the ability to do something that's affiliated and moving you towards increasing your understanding about the pre-med course and the pre-med track, I think that is very, very important. So.
Okay. What is the difference between, and just to tell, I mean, we have people in the chat room from all over the country. This is amazing. And so we got to get some mentors all over the country to help us out with these folks that are trying to get into school. What is the difference, Dr. Reddick, what's the difference between shadowing and volunteering, and how much shadowing should someone do? And please tell us who you are. You're muted.
Sorry, so Bonzo Reddick, I'm Dr. Reddick. I'm from Mercer University School of Medicine. A couple roles there. I'm the Associate Dean of Diversity and Inclusion. So I'm really have a strong focus on trying to increase the number of underrepresented minorities that enroll at our school. I'm also the chair of the Community Medicine Department and also a professor of family medicine. So shadowing is a very specific type of thing that you do where you're actually following along with the physician. So a lot of your clinical years in medical school, that's part of your actual school, that's part of your curriculum. But in your pre-med years, that's not necessarily a part of your college curriculum. So what a lot of students do is actually shadow physicians. So imagine, just following along beside them while they do clinical care. That gives you a couple opportunities. That one lets you know if that's something you're really interested in. For me, I knew the experience of going to my own doctor, but that was just you as a patient. And for a lot of people, that's the first time you have the opportunity of knowing what it's like to just live the life of a doctor, what the day-to-day life is like, what it's like moving from room to room, patient to patient, or if you're in the hospital, and also gives you the opportunity to ask questions. So a lot of times shadowing gives you that opportunity to just see if that's the kind of career that you really will want to do. So it's recommended for a lot of reasons. So that's one big one. And a lot of schools really want to see some shadowing experience because they want to make sure you know what you're getting into. So somebody who's just seen doctors on TV or hasn't really had a lot of experience up close, maybe you don't have any family members, then shadowing is a good way to show that you've gotten exposure to medicine and that's something that you really know what you're getting into. I have been in the room of admissions committees and have people mention about a lack of experience for certain individuals who are applying. Now, the challenge for that, a lot of people get shadowing experiences through their family members or friends of families. And for a lot of underrepresented minorities, because of just the history of our country, your parents, grandparents, that kind of thing may not have actually been allowed to or not had an easy path to becoming a physician. So a lot of times shadowing opportunities for underrepresented minorities are actually limited. So volunteering is just a general term for just doing some kind of service or community medicine service. Sometimes you can do volunteering while you're shadowing. So for example, a student who's shadowing me right now, we have a mobile homeless clinic that we do every Wednesday morning. And so she comes along and she does things like cleans up the mobile unit, wipes down the chairs, that kind of thing. Just pretty much, menial kind of labor and work. But as she's shadowing us, she's doing that kind of volunteering as well. other types of volunteering could have nothing to do with medicine. You could volunteer with Habitats for Humanity, or volunteer with Project Open Hand, or projects like that. So volunteering is just a general term. Shadowing is a specific thing where you're actually doing your work with a physician, following them along.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Harris, what are the requirements to get into medical school? And please, again, tell us who you are.
Yes. Hi, everybody. My name is Alyssa Harris. I'm an admissions counselor at the University, at the Medical College of Georgia at Augusta University. I have to make sure I mention Augusta University. So the requirements that we have, at least, is that you have to have at least a 496 MCAT score, and we say a 3.0 GPA, but I have seen students be successful with a lower GPA because of some other significant life things going on. Maybe they became a parent, maybe they had to take care of their parents, illnesses, things of that nature. But of course, they disclose that information on their application. You're also going to need a bachelor's degree. So the earliest you could probably apply would be your junior year, maybe some of your junior year, because you're going to need to finish everything up by May of the year that you are matriculating with us. So those are the big requirements. Of course, they've mentioned letters of recommendation, clinical exposure. Also for us, we take about 95% of our class is Georgia residents, and the other 5% are out of state.
I noticed too that a lot of the students that were applying to MCG didn't realize that statistics was a requirement at MCG.
Yeah, so statistics is a requirement. We've had several students where we normally ask that it have a math or STAT stat prefix. We have seen where students have taken biomedical statistics. There have been, some of our engineering students have taken statistics in a different realm. So if it's not a traditional statistics course, for those of you guys that are taking something like statistics and you're doing a lot of statistics work in the class, just keep the syllabus, because you may need it when you're applying, and you can send us the syllabus and some of the work that you did in the class that may exempt you from that statistics course. But if you haven't taken statistics and you plan to apply to MCG, you may want to go ahead and get it on there just to make it easy. Or like I said, if you've taken something like it, just keep the syllabus so that you have proof later.
Okay. Just a glance at the chat, there's another Canadian student said that they don't allow shadowing in Canada, so it's very difficult to get that experience. Let's see. A lot of people are talking about mentors, so we have to kind of develop some type of mentoring network, so that we need to reach out to a lot more people that need to be mentors. So I have some ideas about that. Lots of questions that kind of very similar to the questions that have been sent in already, so we'll try and cover as many of those as possible. For Ms. Curry Roberts, this is a more general question. We'll get into the specifics of each school in just a second. Just to kind of piggyback on Ms. Harris, what kind of grades and MCAT scores do you need to get into schools in general? And is it different for minority students versus majority students? And that's from Ms. Curry Roberts. And please tell us who you are.
Sure, and thank you so much, Dr. Jones, for inviting us and for organizing this event. My name is April Curry Roberts. I currently serve as the Director of Admissions and Recruitment. I'm at Meharry Medical College in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm for the School of Medicine, the School of Graduate Studies and Research, and the School of Dentistry. That's a great question. Thinking about grades and then standardized testing. I can answer Meharry specific, and if that's okay, then I will make it a little bit more general.
Yeah, that's right.
Admissions committee completes a holistic review. So they are, as many institutions, I think AAMC reports that over 90% of medical schools do complete a holistic review. So for the students that are watching, and that means that the committee is considering academic achievement, commitment to service, shadowing, kind of your entire package, if you will, everything that makes you, that makes up your application, right? So that's what they're considering. I do know that I want to go back to something previous that occurred. We were talking about a major, academic major. We don't have a specific major requirement. We do prefer that students have a solid foundation in the sciences or in the natural sciences rather, but we've had successful applicants that majored in everything from botany, anthropology, the social sciences. So that doesn't matter as much as the student, their personal mission aligning with our mission. I would say that's probably the most critical factor.
Okay. This is a question that everybody, let me ask Dr. Finley briefly to comment on that also. So in general, what kind of grades and MCAT scores do students need? And we'll get more specific in just a minute.
Yeah, at MSM, we have an academically diverse group of students. So we don't say that there is a certain MCAT or GPA that you need. I certainly would think that you should have at least a 3.0, certainly not less than your BCPM. In particular, our MCAT scores range from below 500 to, I think our average in this current class that started yesterday is, I think, 505. But again, it is range. So again, as Ms. Curry was saying, it's kind of a Curry Roberts. It's the whole package. Certainly, you're going to know the GPA and MCAT in particular, GPA are going to be the things that every school is going to look at. But having the mission alignment, which is very important for us as well as some exposure to the profession, as was mentioned before, so that you know what it is you're getting into, and how you express yourself on your personal statement, your passion for the profession. It is all important in the decision.
Okay. Question came up that we're going to get into in a minute, but since I see 3 questions in a row about it, and we'll make it specific right now, how is COVID going to affect shadowing? I have a quick answer for that. They're not going to let you shadow right now during COVID. Very few people will let you shadow during COVID. Maybe in someone's office, you might be able to do it, but in a hospital right now, very few people are going to let you shadow. And so we'll have to think, not we, but admissions officers will have to think about how we're going to deal with that situation, knowing that you're not able to shadow, because that is a very important part of the application process. So we're going to have to think a little bit differently. Is anybody quickly by Dr. Finley? Okay.
And I was talking to a student today. I would certainly recommend that you increase your service because I think everybody understands that a student that is not an MD student or a PA or a nursing student are not going to be allowed in clinical spaces until a vaccine or something is in place. Mm-hmm. If you can work in the space, so maybe as a scribe or EMT, some EMT training, then that would allow you to be in those spaces. So those might be opportunities to get the exposure, but just volunteering is not going to be done right now.
Okay. Dr. Finley, while I have you there, another question came up. This is always important. How is the graduate GPA viewed? So let's say someone had a low undergrad, but then they came to a program such as yours and decided and did really well and had excellent GPA in the graduate program. How is that looked at in the admissions committee?
So that is, it looked at positively. It is an improvement. So you should not go to a post-bac, whether it's a certificate program or a master's program, and exhibit the same performance you did in undergrad if that was not exemplary performance. So it has to be improved. So that's really the main pain. So it is positive.
Okay. Now I'm gonna do something kind of dangerous
if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Just on the COVID question, I think many schools may have done the same thing that we're doing, but we've added a question on our secondary application, just asking students how their application has been impacted by COVID and for them to explain how, so that if we see that there is some missing research or something like that in their spring semester, we will get some understanding. However, we recognize that obviously they've been preparing for this for several years, so we still, it's not that they get a pass because of this spring with COVID, but they'll have an opportunity on the secondary application to explain how it impacted their application for this particular season.
Okay. I see several questions in the chat box about post-bac programs. We're definitely going to talk about that in just a minute. To kind of finish up on the MCAT, I'm going to do something a little bit dangerous here. I'm going to ask everybody the question, but please give a very, 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 very brief answer. Does your institution have a minimum screen on the MCAT? And if they do, is it for the entire test or for particular sections? Let me call out your names and you can just give a brief. Can you, Dr. Hubbard, can you unmute everyone so we can just do this really quickly? Dr. Graham and Emory, do you all have a minimum? Now, it's the difference between a perceived minimum, but is there an actual fixed minimum?
Our fixed minimum is 500. And then on the equivalent verbal reasoning section, no less than like 30th percentile.
Okay. Dr. Schofield?
Same, greater than 49 percentile, so 500, and we have a minimum GPA of 3.2.
Okay. Dr. Watt?
Yeah, we have a 495 and a 3.3 for BCPM, depending on a whole bunch of other factors. And so that's what it is.
Okay. Dr. Bright?
We have a holistic policy. We will look at anything from a 495 up, and we want a BCPM, a science GPA of about a 3.2.
Okay.
But we will look at others depending upon how they are in life.
Okay. Dr. Watt, just you from since I know you've been there for so long, what's the lowest MCAT score that you've seen someone get accepted there?
Well, the scores change, so, and unfortunately, the more minority students we got, the more stringent the rules seem to have become over time. Like right now, we're going to admit 31 URM students out of 120. But when the scores were before, I had some guys that graduated a couple years ago with a 21. And I don't know, that might equivalent to, I don't know, a few years ago when the test came out, might have been like a 492, 493 or something like that, but I don't remember that. But back in the day, that was 21 on the MCAT was, I believe it was about a 492. And fortunately, those people had no problems getting through medical school.
Okay.
But, so, it varies. We just need hustlers out here.
Okay. Ms. Harris, MCG, do y'all have a cutoff?
We do. 496 is the absolute minimum, and then 3.0 GPA.
Okay. Ms. Curry Roberts.
We do not currently have a minimum for MCAT. That includes the subscores. We don't have a minimum for subscores either. And then considering cumulative grade point average and then BCP or biology, chemistry, physics, BCPM, we don't have a minimum or cutoff for that either.
Okay. Dr. Smitherman.
We have no minimum MCAT. It's a holistic review. Our review is that we are trying to make sure the person can make it through medical school. That's since we're looking at other attributes. Our average, so I can talk about our average MCAT is around 510 actually, and our average GPA ranges from about 3.65 to 3.7. But we accept people based on their broad holistic review at MCAT scores lower than 500 and GPAs at levels around 3.3, 3.4.
Okay. And they're asking to please make sure that you all state again what schools you're from. So please, Dr. Smitherman.
Okay, I'm from, I am Vice Dean of Diversity and Inclusion and Community Affairs at Wayne State University. I'm a professor of medicine there.
Okay. Dr. Reddick. Dr. Finley, we already heard from you, Dr. Reddick.
So at Mercer, we also utilize a holistic review, and some of our special considerations program and some of our post-bac programs, we have these sort of pipeline programs that for students to get to medical school. Some of those programs do have a hard cutoff with the MCAT scores and GPA, but for our general admissions, then we utilize a holistic review as well. our average GPA is about a 3.68 for our entering students, and our average BCPM GPA is about a 3.59. Our average MCAT score for this past year was 503 for entering students. But again, that's kind of the average. There are some students who are going to be above and below that as well. One of our students who's currently enrolled right now actually shared their GPA with me. I'm sorry, their MCAT score with me, and said they got a 494 and actually got in. So there are a range. It depends on your entire application set. Again, if you have a really good GPA, really good volunteer experience, you meet the mission of our school, then you may not need as high MCAT score. For people who don't meet that mission as strongly, you might need a higher MCAT score.
Okay, Dr. Rose.
At Howard, our cut point is 494 on the MCAT. The current incoming class average is 504, and BCPM average 3.3.
Okay. When is the last date that the last MCAT test that you're going to accept? It's probably about the same for everyone. I think what I've seen is September. Is anyone going to go beyond the September MCAT?
We will take up to a January MCAT.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we will. Many times there are students who will retake the MCAT. So we'll hold on to their applications and take a second look when the January MCATs come in. But obviously they're a little bit behind at that point because we're accepting on a rolling basis.
Okay.
So
the
for
person before
Western-
Dr. Rose was Dr. Reddick, and he's from Mercer.
I was going to say also, we take January for our Master of Science in Medical Sciences students, but
Okay.
everyone else is September.
Okay, we're going to come back to that. Anybody else that is going beyond the September date?
This is Kevin Watt from Wright State. I don't know that we normally right now take September, but with all these testing centers changing these students' dates, I'm not so sure that that's going to be a hard stop based on people taking the exam and having not been able to take it for the last several months. So I think some of that's to be seen.
Okay. Next question. A lot of people ask, should I do research? What role does research? Oh, Dr. A, you get your chance right now. You can answer all these questions. Introduce yourself and tell us about the MCAT, but also tell us about research.
I'm Adjoa Dunum. I'm an associate professor of neuroscience and physiology at the Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine, Georgia campus, PCOM, Georgia. In terms of research, it really does help, excuse me, if you've had research experience. It adds to your application. We also do a holistic review. So the research, your postbac, your graduate work, the MCAT, and everything you've done, and Dr. Graham is, nodding, all of it helps. But you don't have to do the research. But if you really enjoy it, helps. And there have been students who, after their admission into PCOM, have actually gone on to complete and do more research with us.
Okay. And what was the last question I asked about? Oh, do you know when the last
Can I weigh
date?
in on that?
Yes.
Cedric Bright at Brody School of Medicine. What I would tell you, young folks, is that do research if research is what you want to do. But don't do research because you're checking off a box. The worst thing that you can do is do research, come into an interview, somebody asks you a question about your research, and you go, huh? So if you're going to do research, make sure it's something that you want to do. And then secondarily, when you apply to schools, make sure you go to the MSAR, Medical Student Application Resource, and look at the profile of the school to see if research is a big part of their mission. If it's a big part of their mission, you might not want to apply there if you haven't done any research. Likewise, if you haven't done any research, you want to look for schools that may be more about primary care. So use that resource, the MSAR, Medical Student Application Resource from the AAMC, the Association of American Medical Colleges, such that you make informed decisions and not just throw out a shotgun blast. That's probably not a good analogy nowadays.
Dr. Bright, I'm coming back to you in 1 second, Dr. A, but Dr. Bright made an excellent point that I meant to bring out very early, and that is utilizing the resources of the AAMC. They have some excellent resources on their website, and it basically walks you through everything you need to know about the application process. And I'm sure the AA COMAS for the osteopathic schools. We're gonna get into that in just a second as well. They have some excellent resources. So please, everybody, you have to review that. Back to you, Dr. A.
What I was going to do was echo what Dr. Bright said. Make sure if you're doing research, you actually enjoy it. I've had students do research because they believe that later on in life, it will help them with residency. And so they've done this research, and during an interview, if we ask them what kind of, explain their research to us, they have no clue. They're not able to explain it. And it baffles me as the co-chair of admission, how you can do research and not even be able to explain what you've done.
Mm-hmm.
May I make one statement also, Dr.
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Whether it's work experience, healthcare, research, volunteering, additional classes, whatever you do, what we're looking for is how that experience enhanced your interest in medicine. Someone asks you a question, you want to be able to explain how this improved your choice as medicine, as a field and an occupation you want to be interested in for the rest of your life.
Okay. Dr. Reddick, there's something in the chat that someone has mentioned that they're unable to select Mercer as a school from the AMCAS drop down. So if you could have someone look into that, so they're not even able to apply to Mercer because it won't let them in the AMCAS drop down box.
And I wonder if they're a Georgia resident. Mercer only accepts Georgia residents. So if your state of residence is listed as not Georgia, it probably won't allow you to apply.
Okay.
You have to be a resident of Georgia. You have to be a resident of Georgia for a minimum of 12 months. And in terms of getting a secondary application, the longer and the more ties you have to Georgia, the better chance you have of admissions. Our mission at Mercer, I didn't mention it earlier, but our mission specifically is to meet the primary care and healthcare needs of rural and underserved Georgia. So we really have a focus on people who are interested in staying in Georgia to practice, and also people who are interested in underserved populations or rural populations.
Okay. While I have you, and I already know what the answer to this is at some schools, but is there an emphasis on Black males, since we know that that is definitely a population of students that are not applying to school? Is there an emphasis in getting Black males into schools at Mercer?
Yes, absolutely. That's been a big focus. So right now, our numbers, when I started as a diversity dean at Mercer in 2016, there was one Black male on our entire Savannah campus. For those of y'all who aren't familiar with Mercer, we have 2 four-year campuses right now. So we have a 4-year campus in Macon and one in Savannah. I'm physically located on the Savannah campus. And we're actually opening up a 3rd campus that's going to be a 4-year campus in Columbus, Georgia. So for you all's cycle, for the people who are interviewing right now for the 2021 start date, there's actually going to be 3 classes of residents each for a total of about 150 students. There's 60 in Savannah, 60 in Macon, and going to be 30 in Columbus's opening year. So as far as Black men, like I said, on the Savannah campus, there was one Black man on the entire campus, and we have a class of 60 students per year. In the 4 years I've been there, that number has gradually increased. This past year, our percentage of underrepresented minorities was up to 12.5%. And this incoming class, I don't want to sort of give away yet because it's not completely finished, but as far as finalized, but it looks like our number is going to be a lot better than that. So we've had a conscious effort to try to increase the diversity of our class, not because we want tokens or anything like that, but because we've known for at least 18 years since the Institute of Medicine's report on equal treatment that diversifying the physician workforce is one of the ways to decrease health disparities regarding underrepresented minorities. So there's been a conscious effort to try to create, to have outreach. We're developing 3 pipeline programs with historically Black colleges and universities around Georgia to try to increase our intentional recruitment of more underrepresented minorities. And in terms of Black men in medicine in particular, that is a specific need for just about everybody. There was a AAMC report that came out a few years ago. I think Dr. Bright might have actually been one of the authors on that. But the number of Black men in medical school in 2016 was the same as the number of Black men entering medical school in 1978. Mm-hmm. So there's been no traction whatsoever. So big need. I think a lot of schools are addressing it. We are definitely making an intentional effort to try to increase our URM population. By the numbers growing, we're hoping that the comfort level that people are going to have going to a majority institution is going to continue to increase. In addition to our recruiting efforts, we also have a strong retention program. So we don't just want to get you in the door. we want to make sure you have success. So we have a kind of a mentoring program that we do with our URMs. I'm the head of that for our Savannah campus. And so once we get here, we'll make sure we have.
We're going to come back to the initiative. I'm sorry, we're going to come back to the initiative in just a second. But yeah, someone else had another question about whether or not Atlanta is considered an underserved area. Yes, inner city populations can be considered underserved areas. Absolutely. We're coming back to you, Dr. Reddick. Dr. A, back to you with the PCOM, and we're going to talk a little bit about osteopathic medical schools. Let's go first to Dr. Graham. Tell us, Dr. Graham, what an osteopathic medical school is and the difference between an osteopathic medical school and an allopathic medical school.
Sure. So I'm an osteopathic medical school graduate, Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine, Georgia campus, where Dr. A is, she helped me. She was my professor while I was a student. So the difference is a little bit in focus and in training. So the science classes are the exact same. You got to take anatomy, you got to take biochemistry, all of the same science courses is really no difference. The only big difference is in addition to learning the science, you take osteopathic manipulation courses, which are ways to treat basically the musculoskeletal system. So you spend about an additional probably I would say an average probably 5 to 6 hours in addition per week of your schedule, where you actually go into the lab and you take, you learn how to do these particular osteopathic manipulation techniques. You're tested on them as well. The philosophy in terms of osteopathic medicine is very much kind of this holistic approach to patient care in terms of, really knowing your patient all the way around, spiritual, all the things that kind of affect them. So for me as a geriatrician, it's actually very much what I do. We holistically approach our patients and kind of everything that they do. And so those are kind of the subtle differences, but you can be any type of specialist you want to be as an osteopathic physician. You can be a neurosurgeon, anything that you are interested in, you can do in terms of that. So it's really not that different, especially these days. Most osteopathic physicians in the United States are trained at MD residency programs. And then with now the match becoming one, I think next year, it's really even going to be more and more really no difference.
Dr. A, a lot of people have the perception of asking the question, is it easier to get into osteopathic medical school than an allopathic medical school?
I don't believe it is easier to get into an osteopathic medical school than allopathic. For instance, at PCOM, our cutoff for MCAT is 495. And for the class of, for the 2019-2020 cycle, the MCAT average was 503, right? With a minimum GPA, science GPA of 3.2, with the average being 3.53. And so it's not easier, but I think what helps is looking at the entire package, your entire profile, as opposed to people thinking that if your MCAT is lower, it's not so competitive, you get weeded out. We don't do that. We actually look at everything.
Can you explain just briefly about the 3 different campuses for PCOM? Because it's the same for a lot of osteopathic medical schools. How does that work briefly?
So for PCOM, we have 3 campuses. The main campus, as I call it, or PCOM North, is in Philadelphia. And that institution was started, Dr. Graham, you should know, 1894, I believe. Yeah. And then the Georgia campus was started in 2005. And as last year, 2019, we started the Moultrie campus. The Philadelphia student body for the first year is 270. For the Georgia campus is 135. And for the Moultrie campus is 59.
And is there an initiative to recruit underrepresented minority students at PCOM?
Absolutely, absolutely. We do try. Sometimes I get on the case of the marketing and admissions, in that I believe they don't. We're not out there. They don't advertise. To me, I don't think we advertise very well, because we've been in Georgia since 2015. That's 15 years, but a lot of people still don't know who we are. right? And so the push is there, but the marketing, in my experience, it's not the greatest. I could be wrong. And so we don't get the underrepresented minorities like we need to, especially the men, especially men. A few years ago, unfortunately, we had only one male Black man in a class of 135. And I found that to be unacceptable, but that's what we had to work with. But it's a little bit better.
A good question came up. Do you have to have shadowing experience and letters of recommendation from DOs or shadowing experience from a DO?
It does help to have a letter of recommendation from a DO, but it's not absolutely critical. But if you can do that shadow and get a strong letter of recommendation, I typically tell students, don't just get, not even a good letter of recommendation. I want to see a strong letter. You want to get a letter from someone who will stand on their heads for you. You know, so we need a very, you know, it helps to have that strong letter. The DO letter helps, but it's not that critical.
Okay. Let's get into some nitty gritty now in terms of the application process for school. When should students apply to school? And start with Ms. Harris and Ms. Curry Roberts. When do you recommend students apply for school? And remind us again what school you're from.
Hi, everybody. I'm from the Medical College of Georgia at Augusta University. I recommend, it really just depends on how prepared you are. I saw somebody ask what's considered late, and for us, I would definitely say October is probably considered late, October, November. And then the cutoff date for all application information is December 1st. So you definitely want to have we do all of our early decision. All of our early decision students have their decision, either they've been deferred or accepted. They have that starting October 1st. So we're well into interviews and things of that nature by October. So if you're just getting your application in, that's what I would consider late. And then of course, I've seen students that say they hit the button as soon as AMCAS, you know, they hit the button on the primary as soon as AMCAS opens it. So.
Okay. And Ms. Curry Roberts, any comments from you?
Sure, and I would echo Ms. Harris's sentiments. You know, the application cycle opens early summer. You know, we review applicants throughout the application cycle, but the earlier the better. Asterisk if you're prepared. It's better to submit a complete application or an application that you feel confident about a little bit later in the application cycle, as opposed to rushing and getting it in during the summer or earlier in the cycle. So I would keep that in mind. If you do decide to submit it early, then to make sure that you are prepared. But then along the same lines, thinking about interview slots and kind of expressing your interest early on. You just want to make sure that the timing is all there.
A lot of questions came up about students that have taken the MCAT, may have had a low score and they're taking it in September. Should they go ahead and turn their application in early? Or you, Dr. Curry, Ms. Curry Roberts. Okay. And Ms. Harris, either one of you.
I'll go ahead and answer, at least for MCG. So they can, we are accepting, so you can do your complete your application, and then AMCAS will we'll get your MCAT score over. It's not considered complete until we get the MCAT score, but we will have it. So that's just kind of something to think about, but I know that COVID has really thrown a wrench into people's MCAT plans, but we aren't able to offer you an interview, unfortunately, until we have an MCAT score.
Okay. Dr. Schofield, any comments on that?
I think that people should take a lot of preparation time to prepare ahead of time. And the year you decide that you're going to apply to medical school, I think that very first application should be the best. And unfortunately, I'm of the school and I think you should get it in early. So if you can't get your application in early, so like for us, we do rolling admissions. So if you submit your application like September, and it's incomplete and you don't complete it, we have a deadline by November 1st, you're not even probably gonna get an interview. It's just impossible. If you're getting like 8,000 applications, just no way that you can get to that application in a timely fashion to try to even give that person an opportunity. So I think up front, it's best to really get your application in as soon as possible. And so it requires preparation the year before to really kind of make sure your experiences, make sure your service, and give yourself time to get that MCAT in early. Now that's pre-COVID. Post-COVID, we're talking a completely different game. We're trying to figure out even if we're going to even look at MCATs as a requirement up front. We haven't decided any of this. I mean, it's still.
That was the question I was going to ask you. If anyone's going to offer interviews without MCAT.
Right. So post-COVID, it's completely different. Your application may be considered complete if you have everything except for your MCAT, and we're willing to accept a late MCAT. We haven't decided how we're going to do that yet.
Okay. Dr. Bright had a comment, and then Dr. Reddick.
So yeah, I want to just piggyback off that comment. You know, many students apply late because they have to earn the
Remind
money
everybody where you are again at school.
I'm sorry, Brody School of Medicine, Dean of Admissions. Many students apply in my 12 years of being in admissions because they have to work in order to earn the money to submit the applications. I really want to express to y'all that you should look at the AAMC's website and look at their fee waiver program, because this year, because of COVID, I think they're going to be more lenient on giving a fee waivers for applicants this year. So please make sure you look at that. When should you apply? When you can put your best foot forward. Think about two people going to an event. One person is dressed to the nines. The other person got there on time because they just decided, I'm just going to get there on time. And they thought that the time was more important than what they looked like. It's what you look like when you get to the front of the line that's more important than what time you got in the line.
Okay. Dr. Reddick?
Yes. So I was just agreeing with Dr. Schofield that we're actually doing that at Mercer this upcoming year. We're actually offering interviews before having MCAT results back. But again, that depends on what your entire application looks like. If you've got a very strong packet other than your MCAT score, you're more likely to get an interview. If you really need that MCAT to boost you up to make you competitive, then you probably should wait a little bit.
Okay. And Dr. Watt, he said he had a comment, last one on this particular topic.
Yeah, I would agree that it's important to have a full package. I would more agree with Dr. Bright that you got to get it in when you can get it in. I also think that if you get a fee waiver, it's not okay to apply to 14 only schools. I don't think if you're getting your hair done, nails done, all these kind of things, then this is for keeps, people. If you really want to go to medical school, you spend your own money, you stop going out and doing extra stuff, because those are the hustlers that I talked about earlier, that you got to scrap this thing out. I just think it's important for students to apply to every new medical school that's in existence in the last 5 years, in addition to those other things.
Okay. Good. Switch to another very important topic.
Can I please add to that, Dr. Jones? So in applying to medical school, some students want to be physicians, and their mission to be physicians is to be out there to help as much as possible. And so my advice is not just to apply only to osteopathic institutions, but mix it up. Do both, osteopathic, allopathic. Whatever it takes for you to get to that end point, that's what's important.
Absolutely.
And make sure that you are prepared. You are absolutely prepared. If you have to stay out, have a gap year to make sure that your entire packet is very competitive, please do that. This is not a race. to get to any point. This is to make sure that you put your best effort, your best profile forward.
Okay. Interestingly enough, not many people ask me about gap years, and that used to be the most common question I got was about gap years. I used to be against gap years, but I'm starting to believe that they are a good thing. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about another big, the personal statement. What should go in a personal statement? How should somebody begin to think about writing a personal statement? Dr. Rose, what are your thoughts on that?
Just unmute myself there, Frank. Personal statement, I think it needs to answer 2 or 3 questions. It's a personal statement, so they got to tell me a little bit about, who they are, why they want to go into medicine, and why they think they'll be good at it. I think if they can answer those 3 questions, you can obviously frame your story around it, but, who are you? Why medicine? Why do you think you're going to be good at it? And kind of frame your story around those 3 questions, and that usually, will do it for me.
Okay. Dr. Bright.
Sorry. So I have a diagram here, and I don't think y'all can see it.
Okay.
Oh, there it is. It showed
Yeah.
up. So you want to start off with your why. That's the center of who you are. Why do you want to do medicine? Next, what did you do to prove that you wanted to do medicine? And then lastly, how? How did it make you feel? How did it impact you? How is it going to change the way that you go about your life going forward? To me, if you work from this diagram, start with your why, tell me what you did to prove your why, and then how did it make you feel? That helps you to stand out.
That's great. That is great.
And can I
Dr.
just
Finley.
add? Oh, sorry.
Let me get Dr. Finley, then we'll come back to you.
I always tell students that your personal statement needs to speak to your passion for the profession. So often students will regurgitate what's already in their activity section back in that personal statement. And so, as everybody else has already said, you need to talk about why you are the best.
Because I also did something like
Tony, can you mute your screen, please?
You need to talk about
Yeah.
why you are the best fit for the profession and what your passion is behind wanting to do that service and considering that it is service that you're performing.
Anybody else have a burning comment before we try to get some more of these questions in?
Yeah, this is Dr. Smitherman, Wayne State University, Vice Dean there, is to make sure an experienced person, someone reads that essay before you submit it.
Absolutely.
We've seen poorly written, I mean, you can have a great, which I think Dr. Bright said it perfectly, the why, the what, and the how, but if you can't articulate it well, it's not clearly delineated in that personal statement. Have someone read it. I don't care what level, English professor, whatever, a mentor, read it before it's submitted. Have someone assess that.
Okay. All right. One of the things that I've noticed with the students that I help with the personal statements, and especially their secondary applications. Let me talk with the personal statements first. People have some excellent experiences that they don't even talk about in their personal statements. I mean, they've traveled abroad. They've participated in all types of research activities, just things that you wouldn't even imagine doing, some of the fine arts things that they do. All of those things are important to put into your personal statement because it tells a lot about you. What I noticed about the secondary statements, particularly with MCG, I think MCG does a really good job of asking you a question. This is what we're trying to ask you. And 9 times out of 10, the student doesn't answer the question. Ask the question that you are answered. They'll give you a lollipop. They're asking you about diversity. They're asking you, what can you contribute to this institution? And you don't mention anything about diversity. You don't mention anything about you're a Black female or Black male or Hispanic female. Answer the question that's asked of you. I think that's very important, something that we don't do. Another question that keeps coming up, and everybody has different opinions about this, but everybody's asking this question, and we kind of touched on it earlier. Should you talk about COVID in your personal statement? Who wants to answer that one?
I'll answer. I think if it's had like a an actual impact on your application.
I'll Google here.
Tony, whoever Tony M is, can you please mute yourself?
So I was just saying, if it's had a significant impact on your application, or even impacted you in terms of how you view medicine or how you see it, and you want to talk about it in that sense, I think it's great to use and for people to speak about. I would not use it if it's an excuse for something, or you know, maybe why you didn't take the MCAT, or if other things occurred. I wouldn't use it in that context. But you know, for instance, if because of this pandemic, you know, it has affected you to the point of, you know, you want to serve now in a very different way, and that you realize medicine can possibly be a career that you put your life out, so to speak, on the line for, and how that is impacted the way you think about medicine and how it's done. I think if you're going to say things, you know, of that nature, or if it's impacted you in that way, I think then it's fine to use from that perspective.
Okay. There's a question in the chat again about the graduate GPAs. Will it replace undergraduate GPAs? Dr. Finley spoke on this earlier. It won't replace it, but if you have a very good graduate school GPA, it can go a long way towards helping you to get into school, because now you're taking graduate level courses, especially if you go to a school that's associated with a medical school. And you may be taking classes with medical students or with faculty that teaches medical students. So it's a very good idea to do that. We're going to come back in a minute and talk about what to do if you don't get in just a minute. Interview. Everyone wants to know about the interview. Are you having interviews on campus? Most people are going to virtual interviews. Let's run the list again real quick. Just tell me, virtual or in person? Dr. Graham?
Emory will be virtual.
Dr. Schofield?
Virtual.
And Ohio State, please mention your school again.
Ohio State
The
virtual.
Ohio State University. I hate Ohio State. Sorry.
You
All because of
petty.
sports. Dr. Watt?
At Wright State in Dayton, we're going to be virtual.
Okay. Wow, Dr. Bright?
Virtual.
Ms. Harris?
MTG will be virtual.
My goodness. Ms. Curry Roberts?
Meharry Medical College, we're also virtual.
Dr. Smitherman?
Wayne State University, virtual.
Dr. A?
PCOM virtual, all campuses.
What? Dr. Finley?
Morehouse School of Medicine, we actually ended last year virtually, but we will be virtual and are having some virtual classes as well with the medical students.
Dr. Reddick?
Mercer University School of Medicine will be virtual as well.
Dr. Rose?
Howard will be virtual, and we finished our last 50 interviews this year virtually.
That is unanimous. I didn't expect that. And how did that go? Your last 50 interviews, what was different between virtual and in person? Do you think it was better, worse, no different?
For us at Howard, we actually had better participation from the faculty because everybody was at home and they were online, and they were quite willing to sign up for the interview days. And we transitioned very quickly, and it actually went smoothly. And the applicants really appreciated the fact that you know, we were willing to just, you know, continue in that format.
Mm-hmm. And other than the fact that the students don't get a chance, that's another big question, don't get a chance to see the school or the institution, you think it worked better? Did anybody else have that experience where you think it actually worked out better to do it that way, other than the fact that the students don't get a chance to see the school?
I thought it worked better.
I think we're going to find out, but let us not forget, not all students have the same broadband. And we need to be aware that there's going to be disparities of students who will not be able to participate in this process because they don't have the broadband access to do that. So we need to be very mindful of that as well.
Okay.
Yeah, that's an important point Dr. Bright made. We actually had a couple of students that we had to kind of actually slow the process down on that interview day to make sure that they caught everything and that, you know, they had a complete interview with their interviewers.
Okay.
I think it worked well for us for many reasons. I do believe that the faculty participation is much higher. I do think that it's a disadvantage not to be able to come to the institution. On the same token, though, I think that at least for this upcoming year, students do know that they can interview virtually. It may take away some of the expenses associated with travel. And so it actually may work in the favor of many students when applying to medical school.
Okay. Someone had sent an email earlier asking about the VITA tool. It's the virtual interview tool for admissions. And I was not even aware of that until they sent that email and I had to go and look it up. Are any of you, I think we asked earlier, are any of you using the VITA? Okay. And it's put forth by the AAMC, and they look at 5 competencies: social skills, cultural competence, teamwork, reliability, independence, and resilience and adaptability. And what's interesting is that, and someone asked this question in the chat, you are not able to see the interviewer. You'll be sent a series of questions and you have to sit down and do the questions. You have as long as you want to do the questions. They have the policy listed on the AAMC website, very easy to read. But the main thing is you will not be able to see the interviewer. It's just going to be questions sent to you and you sit down and record your answers. Those of you that ended up and already did the virtual interviews, was the student able to see the interviewer? So it was. I kind of figured that. I'm not sure why they felt like anyone think it's a good idea not to see the interviewer. I'm trying to figure out how that would be a good idea to not see the interviewer.
Well, this is Kevin Watt from Wright State. Dr. Jones, the reality is if you do it via VITA, it's going to be recorded and uploaded to a system for schools to review. So it's not like somebody sat there live and asked you the question. At the others, and what's going to happen in a lot of places, you're going to be a live interview just like we're having right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's a disadvantage to have a recorded interview because you only have one chance to make your statement and you don't have an opportunity to redo it. You can't think on the fly and change some of your and readapt your answer. And I'm also concerned about the aspect of you know, you're nervous the first time that you do your interview, and as you do more interviews, you get better at the interview process. So I just kind of feel bad for people. Well, if that's what you think is best for you, everybody's got their best answer. So let me start off with that, or at least finish with that. But, you know, I think the opportunity to be able to have that interaction with people, because just as importantly as it is for you to interview with them and they're trying to see if you're a fit, you also need to make sure that you're a fit for that school. So the interview is a two-way process. It's not just about you telling all about you. You need to make sure you're asking questions to make sure that that's the school you really want to go to.
Absolutely. And I've always taught my mentees, you know, that the interview is a conversation. You know, you get your cues from people asking you questions, and it may bring up something else that you forgot to think about. You know, but this just really erases that, and it erases the human component, and I just don't see the benefit of doing it that way. But while we're here, I know everyone said that they're doing virtual, but at some point we will go back to the regular interviews. So let's think about when we do go back, how do you recommend your mentees prepare for interviews? Dr. Rose, you first.
I'm not sure that I would make any different recommendation from how they've been actually preparing. As most of the folks here have said, you know, this is an opportunity for them to tell their story, and as you mentioned, it's really a conversation between them and the interviewer. A few specific things. Obviously, you got to know the school that you're interviewing at. You know, you'd be surprised how many folks will actually come to Howard and they haven't even read our mission statement. You know, so just go as Dr. Bryce said, go on to MSAR and read about the school and make sure that it actually fits for you so that you can have an intelligent conversation with the interviewer about the various things that school actually stands for. I think having a mock interview with your mentor or so is very helpful, because kids are very nervous, obviously, when they come into these situations. And we recognize them. We try to put them at ease. But obviously some folks are just a little bit more nervous than others. So I think practicing beforehand, you do want to have, certain things just down pat. You have to make it sound natural, but you do have to expect some questions. Tell me about yourself. Why do you want to go to medical school? Why do you want to be here? You got to know those things, but also be prepared for that. Most interviewers are going to kind of take you off your script because they want to see you think on your feet a little bit. So you got to be prepared for, some questions that you may not have ever heard before.
Okay. Someone read my notes over here. They asked about Casper. So we'll come back to that in just a second. Dr. Graham, you have the benefit of being on the admissions committee at a allopathic school, but you also went to a DO school. Any difference in the interviewing process? Anything differently you would recommend or how to approach it?
Yeah, so, and I don't know if the other MD schools that are represented here still have this. Emory is one of the few institutions that still has the 3-on-3 interview. And we're actually planning on still doing it even during the virtual, which just means that there's typically 2 faculty members and a medical student for every interview. And then there's, 3 medical students across the tape, 3 students interviewing rather. And so that can be intimidating for people because they'll feel like they need to compete against the other students in terms of they all ask the same questions. So I think in our particular situation at Emory, it's good to just be authentic to yourself. To be honest, it's the same questions. Why medicine? Tell us a little bit about yourself. What's kind of your passion? I would say the difference in the osteopathic interview was, I think there was definitely a kind of a focus, probably similar to the HBCU medical schools, of community-based work, because a lot of deals go into primary care. So they kind of want to know, are you interested in primary care at all? Do you have any kind of primary care driven focus? So I would say that's an important part that we don't necessarily focus on as much at Emory. That they definitely focus on in osteopathic interviews.
Ms. Curry Roberts, what kind of interviews do you all do at Meharry?
Sure. So we have a hybrid format. So we the committee uses elements of the traditional interview in addition to elements of the MMI or multiple mini interview. So the entire interview experience incorporates both.
Can you briefly describe what that is, the MMI?
Sure. So the MMI essentially is a series of subject-based judgment tests that focus more on the interviewee and less on the interviewer. Or situational-based, I should say, judgment tests. So the faculty that's interviewing the student will ask something like, what would you do in this situation? Or we'll present a scenario and say, how would you behave? Or what would your decision be? So it's meant to be, it's meant to be more subjective for the candidate. And one other thing that I would say about the MMI, we give kind of a short amount of time to answer that particular question. And it's kind of, they're rotating. So we might have a 45-minute traditional interview, and then the student would do a certain number of MMI style questions.
Okay. It is now 8:27, but we're going to try and throw in a few more, because I've got a few more important questions, if everyone can bear with us a little bit. Ms. Harris, can you tell us about Casper? I know you all use Casper. Can you tell us what that is and how it's used at your institution?
Yes. So Casper is, so it's $12. It is a $12 fee, and we use it. It's kind of a situational. It's also a situational judgment test. It gives you a scenario, and you have to type into the box what you would say. Students don't get their score. So this is one of those weird things where you actually don't see your score, so you don't really know how you did. We also normally don't give out that information, but it is a Z-score. So 0 being the middle, and then you can come out normally about 2 or 3 points on either side, negative or positive.
And how do you all use that in the process?
Yeah, so we, the way we use it, we kind of look at it and say, where did you kind of fall in the range? And there's a certain range that our admissions committee looks for. So if you fell kind of out of that range, that may be something that the admissions committee will talk about. So it's just one little piece of the application.
Okay.
It's still kind of,
okay. I'm gonna kind of jump ahead to talk about reapplicants, or someone just who was not successful the first time. There are lot more questions that we could talk about with the things that we've already discussed. For those of you that may have come in late, we're going to try and set up over the next few weeks. We're going to ask some of our physicians and admissions folks that we have here to do a deeper dive into particular topics so that we can cover most of this before the application season ends. And hopefully you all will agree to participate in that. But we do realize there are a lot more questions, a lot more things that we need to cover. We can't cover all of them. So I want to skip ahead now to talk about those applicants that don't get into school. And so what do you recommend for students that don't get into school? Dr. Schofield, the first time.
I think it's always important to speak with the director of admissions or someone within the admissions office to get feedback. It's always nice to understand what it was about your application, where were the gaps, where could you have been better, what were some of the issues, was it the interview, so that you can spend that next year trying to fill in those gaps and enhance the application. The other thing that I don't think that students should do, which is what a lot of students do, at least at Ohio State, what happens is once a student finds out they didn't get in, they're immediately that next cycle getting that application together to reapply. And the problem is that once they submit the application again, we can't provide you any feedback on how to improve your application. So before you resubmit it, at least go back and figure out where the challenges were with the application, because we can't help you once you've resubmitted again. The other thing is, as far as the gap year, I think a lot of people do that rush because they view the gap year as a bad thing. But I think if you've been given an opportunity to enhance your application, why not just take that year, or at least consider? Some people don't have the leisure to do that. But if you're able, trying to use that year to really enhance the application so that the second time around it's even better.
Okay. And I kind of want to get comments from several different people around well, we'll come back to that. I'm sorry. Dr. Bright, let's hear you on that same comment.
I'm sorry, which comment is that?
I forgot myself. Which one was that? What did I ask you, Dr. Schofield? It's getting late.
Reapplying.
Reapplying,
oh, yeah,
yes.
Yeah, reapplying. Great,
Yes.
great. Yeah, thanks. So as I was talking to the panelists earlier, almost 40% of the people I admitted this past year, not I, that my committee admitted this past year, were reapplicants. I had a student that was his fourth time applying. So what I want to say to you all is a dream deferred is not a dream denied. It's just a matter of time. Med school's not going anywhere. That's why you got to keep working on self-improvement, getting yourself to be the very best self that you can be. And that's when that magical moment will happen. You know, we talk about luck. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. When you prepare yourself for the right opportunity, your luck will show up.
Okay. I know there was, I had a brain freeze. I wanted you all to frame it. I mean, that was great. Thank you, Dr. Bright. That's exactly what I wanted. But in addition, questions that come up, trying to combine as many questions as possible. And I knew I had something I was trying to think of. A lot of students ask about post-bac programs versus just taking some classes they may not have done that well versus participating in a master's program. So if we can get several of you to kind of talk about that. I got to go to Dr. Finley because I'm familiar with her program and I know it's awesome. tell us a little bit about your thoughts on that, and we'll get some more people in too.
So it's always better, I think, if you get another degree, but I know cost is often a concern for students, as I was talking to some today. If you need to improve—
Can they get financial aid for that program?
No, we have
Masters?
some limited scholarships for the Master of Science in Medical Sciences. But it's always better to get the full degree. People also look at certificate programs versus the graduate degree. And again, a degree is better in hand than just a certificate program. Often certificate programs too are kind of helping you to redo the prereqs and maybe some upper level undergraduate courses, but the master's actually shows you, or shows a medical school, that you can do another level of work, which is what you want to do.
And Dr. Reddick, what about someone who's got pretty good MCAT scores, but their GPA was relatively low? Should they just take some more classes, retake those classes, or do they need to be in some type of formal program?
And that's when I think a formal program like a post-bac program is a great idea. At Mercer, we actually have 2 post-bac programs. So they're both master's degree programs. One of them is called the MSBS, which is Master's of Science in Biomedical Sciences. And then we also have an MSPS, which is a Master's of Science in Preclinical Sciences. The MSPS, which is preclinical, is very heavily made up of students who are interested in clinical careers. So they want to be go to medical school or be a PA or nurse or something like that. It's a 1-year program, so you get your master's degree in 1 year. And during that process, like you mentioned earlier, you're actually taking courses by medical school faculty members. You're actually getting involved in that. You can actually be involved in programs that are actually with the medical students. So you get exposure to all kinds of opportunities that you might not have otherwise. And again, the admissions committee knows the track record of that program because these are our faculty members teaching this program. So if you had a poor GPA in undergrad, but you come and do the MSPS program and bust it out and have a really good GPA during that program, that's going to be almost a shoo-in to get in. And they do have special considerations. If you get above about a 504 in the MCAT and do well in that program, you're probably going to get in. The other program is the MSBS, is a 2-year program. It also has a master's degree, but it's also heavy research, which is why it's 2 years. That may be more appropriate for somebody who feels like they really had not a strong application and need a little bit more time to really show what they can do, or maybe get some research experience. But I think that's a great idea and a great way to do it. Just last point, our GPA range, I spoke to our director of our MSPS program earlier today, Dr. Klein, and she said the range of GPAs currently in that program are between a 2.73 and a 3.84. So some of those students are really competitive, and maybe they're just late to the admissions process. Maybe they've decided at the end of senior year in college they want to go to med school, and they're strong. They just need a year to kind of fill that gap. But some of them are students with a 2.7 GPA who are ready to really work and bust it out and do well. And that's a great path to medical school in a year.
Dr. Smitherman?
The question is still on the rejection?
Yeah. And
okay,
then what should they do? A master's program?
Well,
post-bac?
The first thing I would say to a student, and what I tell students, is never quit quitting. I also tell people that you should meet with the Dean of Admissions or the Dean of Diversity. The reason I tell students to do that, I meet with students all the time who want to talk about their application. Because when you reapply, you want to make sure you have some kind of relationship with that Dean of Admissions. And they're telling you, look, I think if you do this or that, this will improve your application and enhance your ability to get into medical school. You want that kind of, it's not a commitment, etc., but it's what they're telling you is, here's what I think you need to do in order to take the next step. And I think that's important. With respect to a degree program is always better. People are talking about post-bac programs. There are 250 post-bac programs in private and public institutions in the United States. 71 of those programs are focused on economic and educationally disadvantaged students. So you want to look at those programs, because some of them you can get your tuition paid for, you can even get a stipend like in ours. So I think 98% of the programs focus on underrepresented minority students. So look at degree programs, look at post-bac programs. All of those strongly enhance your ability to get in medical school, especially if you improve. and we at our institution, I don't think at Wayne, if indeed we don't even look at your undergrad if there's improvement in those graduate level courses. Those become your grades that we evaluate you on.
Get a few more quick questions in. There have been several questions about scholarships. Now, anyone want to talk a little bit about their scholarship programs, just very briefly, particularly for minority students? Or do you have lots of scholarship money out there for minority students?
At PCOM, we have several scholarships, and I wouldn't say that they're specifically for minority students. But we do have one for, I think it's half scholarship, half tuition for Hispanic students. And then we have another half for the general population, and then a full scholarship.
Okay. Anyone else? Just briefly. Yeah, I know everyone has initiatives. We didn't get a chance to talk about the different recruitment and retention initiatives, but the question came up specifically about scholarships.
This is
I know money is tight.
This is Kevin Watt at Wright State, Dr. Jones. I think we all have some scholarships. In our at Wright State specifically, we have scholarships that are for URM students, and most of our students have some sort of money, but most of us who are on this thing, we didn't have money when there was no financial aid. And so do not let the financial aid in one institution or the other be the determining factor of where you're going to go to medical school, people. There's a lot of money regardless of where you're going to go, and you have to be happy at that place. And that's not always about money. And I got to go back with this post-bac thing, Dr. Jones. You know, I'm a student from MedPrep in Carbondale, Illinois, and I'm a firm believer that you can get into medical school without a master's degree. If you get these master's degrees, people, you better get some A's in it, because if you don't get an A in everything, we expect that you're going to get an A because you're not taking 5 and 6 classes at a time. If you don't get the A and you don't get the 503, if I got a 503 and a decent BCPM, I don't need to go to any other program. Some of you students need to understand, do I need an MCAT to get myself into med school? Do I need both? Or do I need to just enhance my grades? And that's really where it comes down to, in my opinion.
And that's why it's so important that the folks use the MSAR, because the MSAR can help you make a determination as to what school your scores line up with, and you don't waste your time applying to schools on a whim. You have a directed purpose for why you apply to the school.
And that's why it's so important. If you all don't learn anything else, it's so important to have a good mentor, because those are the type of things that a good mentor will tell you what schools you should apply to. I mean, you want a mentor that's going to be honest and open with you. And I can tell you, most of the folks on this panel have no problem being open and honest with you. But you need a good mentor and apply to the right school. I have to go back something that always comes up that kind of irks me. I shouldn't say irks, that's the wrong word. But people ask a lot, should they get a master's in public health? I have a master's in public health, but I would not recommend anyone do that as a means of trying to strengthen their application to get into school. We want to see the hard sciences. We want to see you perform. How do you perform in the sciences, not in public health? I've had some people say nutrition. Oh, I got a master's in nutrition. That's great, but that's not a hard science. So if you're going to take courses, get into some of the hard sciences. Master of Public Health is great, you know, to do along with the MD or after you finish your MD, but please don't do it as a means of getting into school. We're gonna wind it down now, and what I want to do is very quickly have everyone go through and give some parting shots and parting recommendations. Again, very briefly. I'll give my first one. First, I want to thank everyone for participating, both the panelists as well as the people that were here. And we still have 439 participants still on at this late hour, which means that they must appreciate what's been said. So thank you to all of you. I want to recommend, there are lots of great programs around my program. I don't want to say our program is just one, Pre-Med Solutions. We have a website, www.premedsolutions.com. We're in the process of getting it. It's under construction, so bear with us a little bit. We need more mentors. And so any of you, I know there are actually a lot of physicians online as well. Any of you that want to be physicians, particular mentors and student mentors, please reach out to us. A lot of students have been asking that you all supply your contact information. So if you're comfortable doing that, you can leave it with us, and we'll give it to them, and we'll make sure that they don't abuse it. Again, want to thank you so much for tuning in. And like I said, I'm a living example. It took me 3 times to get into school. And so I never gave up, and don't you ever give up. And there are lots of people. There are a lot more people that want to help you than you think. You just have to find them. Unfortunately, sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's difficult. But we're here to try and make it a little bit easier for you. So if we could just have some parting comments from, actually, let's have first from our pre-med student. She hadn't said anything in a while. Nicole, did you learn anything today? And what would you like to see in the future?
I did. I learned so much the whole time. I was just taking notes, and I just feel like everyone's perspective was so holistic. It was really nice to see that, kind of debunking the disparities that I feel like, or debunking some of the myths that admissions counselors kind of tell us, how, oh, if you don't have a 3.9 and a 5.20 something, no medical school will ever touch you any day anyway, period. To really just, not only listen to you all's testimony, but talk about how your schools are actually looking for doing holistic reviews of candidates. So yeah, it was just an experience. I learned so much. Thank you all so much for everything.
There's a lot more to come. We're going to figure out a way to, again, break this down into subsets so that we can really provide you some in-depth recommendations and ideas. Dr. Graham.
Yeah, I just want to echo the statements that everyone has made about making sure that your application represents in the best fashion forward, so that you put your best. So if that means you got to take an extra year, if you need to get a master's so that you can strengthen your science GPA, whatever it takes to make sure that you present your best self to the admissions committee. Because as you guys know, most of our schools get a lot of applications, thousands of applications. And so there needs to be at least something special about you after MCAT, after GPA. The next things, those are kind of the initial ground things. And then after that, what's special? What's great about your story? You want to be able to leave an impression on people. I can tell you sometimes in one day, I may read like 60 applications in a 4-hour period. And so, of course, if you're reading that, you can only do so much with that. So you sometimes are skimming for things that are important and that stand out. So just try to create an application and a story that makes you unique and makes you stand out.
And I want to say something about Emory and some of the others, all the schools mentioned on here, because the reason I reached out to these individuals, first of all, because of who they are individually and what they've been doing, but also because their schools have made a concerted effort to increase the diversity at their institutions. And so I want you all to support these schools when you're applying. We do have folks from Morehouse, Howard, Meharry, but everybody can't go to a HBCU. I wish you could, but everybody can't go there. But we need you at these other institutions as well. And we have people there that are fighting for you. So please support these other institutions as you're applying. And that goes for everyone who's on this panel have done great things in terms of diversity and inclusion. I wanted to say that before I forgot. Dr. Schofield.
Charles Drew. Don't forget Charles
and Drew. I mentioned Drew. Drew will be here next time.
All right.
Drew we had several people from LA, which I didn't anticipate. Several people from LA. And so that's my bad. It was a conscious decision, probably a bad decision. Definitely a bad decision. They'll be here next time. Don't nobody tell them it was a conscious decision. Dr. Schofield.
I think preparation is key. And once you've decided, whenever that is, that you want to become a physician, you want to go to medical school, I think finding a mentor, someone who believes in you, and then preparing. I like to attack things, maybe it's the surgeon in me, but I like to attack things like, what are the things that I need to accomplish, whether that's scheduling your courses for undergrad, getting those prerequisites in, understanding what the requirements are for different schools. Those are all very important. So plan, like you would plan for any other thing in your life, plan to go to medical school if that's where you want to be.
I'm laughing because in the chat box, Danae works at Drew, and she says she is going to tell. Uh-oh. All right. We love Drew. Dr. Watt.
Yeah, I would say if you want to go to medical school, you can go. It may take you 5 or 7 or years, but what you don't want to do is go through life wishing what you would have done. But besides those HBCUs, I got about 100 minority medical students here. I got 9 males coming this year and 22 ladies. So just grind it out, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to go, you can go. If you want to find anybody on this call, you can find them. If they don't answer you the 17th time, call them 18 times. They know your numbers. By then, they will really know who you are. They're just half the time can't answer, and the other half the time they want to see if you how bad do you want it.
That's right.
All right. Ms. Harris.
Thank you for having me. I just want to say that well, I can speak particularly for MCG, give us a call. Our admissions team is small, but we're very tight knit and we work really hard to make sure that we are helping each and every student, reaching out to each and every student. So I will give Dr. Jones my information particularly, but our information overall, so that you guys can send us an email or give us a call. We can set up a chat. We do want to help you plan for medical school particularly. So we are excited to talk to you guys. Thank you so much. And I hope to join the part 2, 3, and 4.
All right. Ms. Carrie Roberts.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you for the opportunity. It's been a privilege to speak with you this evening. I just want to encourage the students. The application process may seem challenging, but I want to encourage you to think about why you started. Think about your passion for medicine, becoming a physician. I want you to consider, as you're applying a fit, what your unique needs are, what your values are, and how they correspond with the institution that you're applying to. At Meharry, we have a commitment to serving underserved populations. If that resonates with you, I certainly will provide my direct contact information to Dr. Jones. I want to encourage you to do your research, think about outcomes, as you're researching the schools, what alumni are doing, what the culture is like at the institution, and then lastly, highlight your strengths. Whether you are, committed to service, and that is something that you bring to the table, or maybe you have an interest in health policy. Throughout the application process, focus on what makes you unique.
Yeah. Just a quick note, I see a whole lot of folks in the chat box asking for mentors. So it's incumbent upon us to be willing to reach out and be mentors, but I'm also asking those of us to talk to our colleagues and ask our colleagues to be mentors. Now that we've gotten used to this Zoom thing, this virtual thing, it's even easier to be a mentor. So there's no excuses on our part now. We have a lot of, and I'm preaching to the choir because you all are mentoring, but you can reach out to your colleagues and ask them to be mentors, because we have a whole lot of folks asking, and I love that, because you got to go get a mentor. If you don't have one, you got to go find one. So it's up to us now to help. Dr. Smitherman.
First of all, thank you very much, Dr. Jones, for actually doing this. This is, I think, critical. My closing point would be, if you look at the faculty members that are a part of this, and I'm talking to the participants, and the schools they represent, you should apply. Make sure you're applying to those schools, because what this says is each and every one of those people are advocates within their own institutions. And I can't tell you, over 30 years practicing medicine and being involved in admissions, how many times I've had to stand on someone's chest to make sure a student gets into school. So you need to apply to schools that have advocates within them that are going to support your application. And you have right here an expression of people who are going to do that. Make sure you're applying to those schools.
Yeah. Dr. Edmond had to leave. And last but certainly not least, one of my colleagues in residency at Howard, Dr. Rose.
Thanks again, Frank, for the invite, and truly enjoyed sitting in on this panel. I think to the students out there, there's just so many resources out there, particularly those through the AAMC has been mentioned before. So I think you just want to critically, just ask yourself, hey, is this what I want to do? And once you decide that this is what you want to do, then go ahead and pursue it. I think there are enough resources out there for everybody to take a critical look at their application and know where their weaknesses are, and then just go ahead and work on those weaknesses. And as Dr. Bright said, as he mentioned his numbers about the number of reapplicants, I kind of quickly pulled up my spreadsheet, and 47 out of 120 of our incoming class are reapplicants, so 39%. Don't give up there.
Right. And I missed the whole page of folks. I'm sorry, I don't know how I did that. Dr. A.
So the only one who can stop you in this application process is yourself. You're the only person who can deter you from going through it. And so when you do apply, take your time, as we've said, make sure that you're very well prepared and you're ready. You have the best application you can put forward. Now, perchance, if you do not get in and you seek advice from the admission team, whatever they tell you, please make sure that you do it. And I can't tell you the number of times we've held students for MCAT because it's too low. It's in the low 400s or even, $399. And they show up again with the next cycle. And I ask them, did you retake the MCAT? No, I think my MCAT score is good enough. No, it is not. You didn't get in the first time. If it was good enough, you would have gotten in. Your GPA is great, but if your MCAT is not competitive, you will not get in. So please ensure that whatever advice or direction is given to you, you follow that direction. And don't quit for any reason. Just keep pressing and keep pushing. Keep knocking on that door. Someone is going to eventually open that door for you to get in.
All right, we have several of our Morehouse School of Medicine students, current students that are making comments in the chat box. Please pay attention to those. Dr. Finley, speaking of Morehouse.
So I just encourage you, and actually Ms. Curry Roberts said a lot of what I would say, to continue to pursue your passion, to make sure that your mission suits the mission of the institution that you're looking for. So at Morehouse School of Medicine, we too work with underserved, and we're very committed to increasing the number of Black males in medicine. Dr. Montgomery Rice is very much committed to that this year. We have a class of 105 that started yesterday. 55 of them, it's the first time we have more males than females. 55 and 54% of them are Black males. So, just again, continue to pursue, present your best self, kind of all the things that have been said today. So, and good luck to you. And I often advise students, I probably get several calls a week. I'm open to receiving those calls and talking to you.
And we didn't get a chance to talk about Dr. Finley's programs. She has amazing results with her post-bac. I call it post-bac, but master's level programs.
We have a 91% success rate of getting students into medical school. And we have our first 3 students completing residency this year. So we started in 2012 with a master's, and now we have our first 3 who have completed residency. 2 will come back to Georgia to serve, and 1 is going to Tennessee, to Vanderbilt.
I just had to get that shout in for Morehouse. I know all of you all have great programs, but I had to put that shout in there. Dr. Reddick, another Morehouse man.
That's right.
Two.
Double Morehouse man. So just 2 quick points. One is that I just want to reiterate that this is all worth it. There are not very many careers on the planet that come close to being a physician. So it is totally worth it. If it takes you a couple years to get in, stick with it. Nothing has the flexibility and the enjoyment and just the thing to keep you going.
It's 5:58 p.m.
Danae, can you put your, thank you.
Oh, sorry. But yeah, but
Danae's the one that works at Drew too, so we definitely gonna make her hang up.
But sorry, but yeah, I graduated 18 years ago, and in that time, my career's changed so much. I worked in a rural ER for 5 years. I delivered babies for 15 years. Right now, I'm working at a homeless clinic and doing HIV and hepatitis C screening in the emergency department. like with medicine, it's never going to get boring. You're going to have stability like you wouldn't believe, and it's going to always be so exciting. It's totally worth it. So stick with it. Second quick point is just a reminder that Mercer, our focus is on people who are interested in underserved medicine or rural medicine. And it is specifically for people who are Georgia residents for at least 1 year, or people who have interest in staying in Georgia. So if you kind of fit that profile, then please reach out to us. We're definitely trying to make a strong effort to try to increase our URM, or underrepresented minority population, in the student body. Dr. Rick McCann, who's our Associate Dean of Admissions, is actually on this call right now. And we're making a conscious effort. We don't want to just get you in, we do support you. We have a mentoring program where we have monthly social events and support groups and that sort of thing. So if you're interested, please reach out to me for sure. And if you're in the Savannah area and need to get some shadowing, let me know.
Dr. McCann, I meant to introduce you earlier. I'm sorry. Appreciate you being on. Just again, look in the chat box. Another one of my student mentors with Pre-Med Solutions, Drew Sanders, has put I guess a Google spreadsheet for people that need mentors. And Dr. Bright, did I get you or not? Okay, well, we got to let the bros bring it home. Frat brothers, we got to let you have
So
the last
since you
word.
made that statement, it's not the size of the dog that's in the fight, it's the size of the fight that's in the dog.
All right.
So be the right size, have that fight and you go for it. Number two, kind of conquer your fear. False evidence appearing real. You got to overcome that. It's all right to have apprehensions, it's all right to have concern, but don't let it cause the fear effect, which is to paralyze you, to fight, or to flee. And then last but not least, inch by inch, life is a cinch. Yard by yard, life is hard. Don't try to do everything all at one time. Commit to doing daily improvements. And over time, you'll look up and you won't realize how far you have gone by just doing inch by inch.
Wow, what a great way to end. This has been amazing. I appreciate you all again. I do just have to give two more shout outs to my assistants who helped put this together, Dr. Priscilla Hubbard, who's the Chief Operating Officer of the Atlanta Medical Association, and my assistant, Ms. Jada Young. They really helped to put this together, and you will be in contact with them as we move through this process. And the last thing I have to say, with Pre-Med Solutions this year, we had 13 students that went through the process, that did mock interviews. We reviewed their applications, things of that nature. We were 13 out of 13, 100% of our students got accepted to school this year. And some of them are on this call today, and they are willing, ready, and able to be mentors. You can find us on Twitter at Pre-Med Solutions, Facebook, Pre-Med Solutions, and Twitter at Pre-Med Solution with no S, and on Instagram. So I'm still trying to figure out how to use Instagram and Twitter, but I know how to use Facebook. So I'll reach you on Facebook. But again, thank you. We're going to end it now, but please reach out to us, and we're here to help serve. Thank you again for participating.